If you're really in a position where there is a discongruity between what you're required to get to as a leader and what your heart is telling you, then sooner or later, you're going to be in difficulty. There's going to be a crash, and that comes later in life. So I think that's the first thing. If someone is leading and they're leading somewhere actually they don't really want to go to, they're not interested. It's a pretty difficult leadership task.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Knowing Who You Are. We are here to have a great conversation with Martin Farrell, whose book has been published in 2024, Good Leaders in Turbulent Times. And we have Martin Farrell with us, and we'll be having a conversation. He's a coach. And as you know, he has written this amazing book, which has been a #1 bestseller already in Amazon Kindle in the US and also in the UK. Martin, welcome to Knowing Who You Are. How are you?
Thank you, Ershad. I'm very well. Looking forward to our conversation.
No, same here. There's a lot to learn. I have already started reading your book and looking forward to the event as well when you have the book launching event coming up in October.
Yes.
So, Martin, you have written this beautiful book about leadership. There are a lot of books in the market about leadership, numerous, and especially in a business section in a bookshop, if you go, you'll find, and there's also our coaches, they have written books about leadership, corporate leadership, mindset coaches. There are a lot of things available in the market, but you have written something for leaders, and you're saying good leaders, especially in turbulent times. So this experience definitely is coming from an experience, and you're coaching people as well, and different companies. You've been involved with the UN and other institutions. So where is it coming from, and what's the authority behind it that you have decided to write this book?
The authority, I think it comes from 60 years of practice, which is slightly different from 60 years of experience, because it could be that I had 1 year of experience 60 times. But no, I think I've had 60 years of different experience. And if I could say the subtitle of the book as well, which is How to Navigate Wild Waters at Work. Because we've all been in wild waters. I've been in wild waters. I'm sure you have, Ershad, and many people listening to this. If you haven't been in wild waters yet, you probably will be pretty soon. It comes with the territory. It's part of life. And struggling and suffering is part of life. That image, that metaphor, came from an actual experience that I had. I was in Southern Africa with a lifelong friend, and we went when on my 50th birthday. I went there for a trip with my family. And she said, "Oh, first day, why don't we go? You could do whitewater rafting." I said, "Oh, yeah, great, let's do it." This was a hell of experience. It was all day. This was not like in some community center or gym down the road. This was real wild Africa. I refer to this in the book. So I use that experience because in many ways, I think it speaks of leadership. Because there were many times in that, I'm exaggerating, several times when I really thought I was a goner. I was in the water was above my head, the boat was, I thought I can't get through this, but I did get through it. My family got through it. We all got through it. But it was also a thrilling ride. And I think leadership can be a thrilling ride. But good leaders, in a way, need to know how to ride those waves, how to really make the most of their experiences. So the authority comes partly from my own experience of wild waters and also my experience of coaching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, particularly those people who are in real challenging situations, notably chief executives of UK charities. That's how this started. 22 years ago, I started coaching chief executives of UK charities who were about to lose their job. They were in conflict with their board and at risk. So out of their experience and out of my experience, and also out of the experience of being an international facilitator, I put that together to think about how can people really navigate those wild waters.
Yeah, it's a
So in the
beautiful
book,
marriage of everything. Yeah.
I think so. I think so. And I've done 6 manuscripts, I have to say. The whole origin story, and that's right, is another story. What you've been looking at is the 6th manuscript. This
Mm.
time last year, I was on manuscript 2, and I was courageous enough, perhaps wise enough, to send it to beta readers and then to listen what they were saying. And one of the comments, in fact, from a friend he was a social worker and currently doing bereavement counseling, he said, Martin, where's you in this? Where's the secret sauce in this? He used the term secret sauce. You're writing it like it's some sort of academic book. Well, I know you. Where's the secret sauce? And I thought about that. It was a Friday evening. I didn't sleep well that
Mm.
night because I thought he's really onto something. I'm trying to be something I'm not.
Mm.
I need to know who I am and somehow express that.
And to be
This,
honest with you, I felt that when I was reading the book. That's what I was mentioning, that I felt it has a very spiritual element to it as well.
mm-hmm,
Because when I was reading it, I found you don't have to be a businessman, or you don't have to be an entrepreneur, or you don't have to be a manager to read this book. Anyone can read it. And because you bring some anecdotes and you've fictionalized, I understand some real life situations probably. And you brought some different characters, then you added some commentary at the end of each where you added your own experience. So that's why I was saying it's a beautiful marriage of all those beautiful things. And also it feels like at some point you forget that you're reading nonfiction. It almost feels like, oh, it's a nice story. Okay. Okay. What happened to Robin? What happened to, all those different characters that pop up? So I was enjoying it. And I would say I definitely recommend people to go through it. And the secret sauce, whoever your friend was, that was a great, great advice, I would say. And that has evolved into this book now. And did it take 6 years for the book to be written? I mean, it took almost 6 years, is it? Or more than that?
You're nearly right. It was 8 years.
8 years. Okay. Yeah.
Started on October the 20th, 2016.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And at that time, I was going through it was a difficult time. I mean, I'd
Mm-hmm.
been depressed and we were really very anxious, depressed, couldn't move
Mm-hmm.
the story, but that was earlier. But it was after the Brexit referendum. There were some personal challenges as well. And I was quite low, I think, but still functioning okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as a chief executive, someone I'd been coaching and supporting. And I thought I would be saying, now, how do you get another job? And how do you, do your CV and so on? And more or less, she said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't need, we have enough money in the family and I'm going to do something different. And by the way, you're going to write a book because what you do here is really helpful. And what's more, I'm going to help you. Oh,
Wow.
okay. And that's how it started. Long
Mm.
story. The origin story could take a whole podcast, really. So it's 8 years. It's been 8 years. And during that time, I've struggled. I've nearly given up. I've just got hopeless and thinking out. But then really in the last year, and it was that secret sauce conversation in a way was a real shift point. I thought, yeah, I can find my voice. I
Mm.
don't want to be pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Years ago, a coach I was seeing 30 years ago when I was at the British Red Cross, one of the things that came through my conversations with her was, I wanted to be as big as I am.
Mm.
That's not as big as you or as big as him or her, just be as big as I am. And I often hold that in mind and find my voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what I've done in this book. And that's happened probably in the last 9, 12 months since the secret sauce conversation, because I thought, I'm just going to say my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you like it, but I'm not going to pretend to be somebody else. So some coaching books. So when you say the authority, where's the authority? The authority is an earned authority. It's not some sort of academic thing. It's not corporate speak. It's intended to be personal. I speak
more
of my
organic, I think.
organic. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I'd started with the research, I got to the person who was helping me, interviewed people, summarized it all, put it into themes. That took a year or two. And then I looked and he said, there it is. I thought, oh, what do I do with this? She's done her work. Now, what do I do? I had no idea. I had no idea.
Mm.
And then I remember the moment thinking, I think I could write a story. I feel I want to write a story and put commentary. As you will
Mm.
have seen, there are 9 characters, which is quite a lot, but they're identified clearly throughout over 7 years. And alongside that, there are 138 nuggets of advice, commentary, 138 pieces of commentary, which fit with the place that that character is in at that moment. And I did it that way, partly because it came from me. It was part of discovering who I am at my great age, still discovering who I am. So it kind of felt true. And I could be a little bit wacky, a little bit crazy, a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought this is going to meet people who are struggling. Because the people I work with, whether it's international facilitation, you refer to the UN. I started working with the UN in 2002 with climate change. And I've done, I don't know, many, many, many retreats with them. And then I got hired by other people.
Okay.
Says, oh, wow, you work with the UN. Oh, great. Come and work for us. So I have quite a lot of time going around doing that. That's not to say those organizations were in crisis, but they were certainly on an uphill climb. Executives I've been supporting have been in crisis. So I thought, how do I write something which will be easy to read, will be engaging, will be interesting? A moment ago, if I recall correctly, Ershad, you used the word beautiful, this beautiful book, something like that. I've put
It's a beautiful marriage.
There we are.
Yeah.
And in the way that we've done the front cover, that we've laid out the book, we put hours thought into this. I thought, the people I know who are struggling, they're not going to walk through, dense pages. They need something lighter. So we tried to reflect that.
Many books we read these days, it becomes at some point that you feel like as I'm reading, I have to take notes. I mean, I've read books like that, and coming from my background, I do get to read a lot of books like that where I feel like taking notes. And there are times when I'm at the gym, I'm listening to a podcast, but every now and then I stop running and then I take a note on my phone because it's important. But with your book, it's subconsciously the information sips through, and whatever, it will make you think, but you're thinking and stays with you. I would like to get to this. I think the first question that everyone should be asking, and people are quite confused about, who's a leader? Because is it just hierarchical, or is it there's something more to it? Because as you know, from your experience, you don't have to have a title to become a leader. I mean, that's what I've been told many years ago in my position as in the management. And it made me think at the time, how can you become a leader without a title? Because there are certain questions. The authority is missing. So would it make you feel less confident? That's one thing. And why people you're trying to lead, or people whom you're thinking to lead, why would they listen to you? That's the question. And also sometimes in absence of the authority, a little bit of the fear factor is missing. I'm not saying scaremongering is the way of leadership. That's not at all. But the thing is, when you have the thing, okay, someone from the authority is telling me to do something and I have to do it, that's the fear factor there. When it's missing, how can someone without being in the hierarchy or a title be a leader? So who's a leader according to you?
I think 2 things. One is that I think about, you referred to authority earlier on. So there's given authority. Okay, he's now the prime minister, or he's now the chief executive, or he's now the team leader. Yeah, so it's an appointment, it's in an organization, it's in a hierarchy. There is also earned authority, earned leadership, which I'm sure, Ershad, you're a leader. I don't know. I mean, I know you do many things, many creative and interesting and exciting things. I don't know if any of those you have a formal title of a leader, but people look to you. So one thought is the given and earned authority. And of those, the richest, it seems to me, is the earned authority. You can, of course, have a given authority. And Sir Nick Young, who wrote the foreword for the book, was my boss when I was at the British Red Cross. And I said this to him, and I can say it here publicly, that when I think, if people say, oh, who's the best leader you ever worked with? I always think of him. I've told him this. I sent him his copy and I wrote that in the book because he was exciting. He had the given authority. He was head of the UK division at that time and then became chief executive later on. But also I was a willing follower. So I think the second part of my answer to your question is, who are the followers? Because you said the fear factor. We could think now of people who are in situations where they're afraid of a leader and they would accept that leader. You could think of political people, probably, and I can think of some people I've coached where the leader in their situation led by fear. And that individual suffered enormously and then left. It's not a good way to lead. You can lead, but it's not a good way to lead.
So what would you say, is this innate characteristic, or can it be earned, or is it a combination of both?
I think it's maybe like singing and lots of these things. You know, we can probably all do it, but some have got a substantial head start. But I think we can, these are natural qualities, but some of us just are naturally there. I say us, I don't count myself in that category, but although I remember my dad saying, oh, you're a natural leader. I think I was 10 or something at the time. I don't know what it was. I remembered that, but it can be learnt and earned by practice. So when I said, yes, my authority is the practice over those many years, I've been practicing. And particularly, I would say, in the last 20 years. And also particularly since, well, 14, 50 years ago, 2010, when I turned 60, I got quite depressed and anxious for 9 months. And I stopped working more or less because I was just so miserable.
Is it like a burnout, or what was the reason for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just been working like crazy. I started working independently in 1999, and there was so much work. I got work every day. I remember the phone going, I think, oh no, not another request to do something. Someone said to me, you could say no, but no, I couldn't say no.
Someone would think Lucky Martin, right? Listening to this.
Kind of but I think if we talk briefly about that burnout, and then we'll come back to your question about the given authority and so on, and followers, because I want to talk about followers as well, that at that time, I think I was using my work in several ways. One was to my career, to earn some money, maybe to have some status, and blah, 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 and also to do good in the world. It was always been in charities. I've always worked in charities. Organizations in one way or another are doing good. You know, the international organizations, UN and so on, are not charities, but they're working with a purpose. They're not there to make money for the shareholders. That doesn't inspire me. I've never done that. The closest I got is working with charities as part of big corporates, but working with embedded charities. But part of another driver for that, and I think why I sort of collapsed really for 9 months, was that I was doing it as a defense, because I didn't want to touch some of my inner stuff, let's call it. There are many ways of defending oneself, and hard work is one of them. The others are kind of obvious. Drinking, wild sex, that's, nice, but, it's be a defense. Drugs, just being obsessively engaged with something, so that, and you're doing that because you can't stop. So I couldn't stop. So I said yes to everything. It's kind of, if there's people listening to this who can't find work, they're probably going, oh God, listen to him. He had a problem. He had too much work. I can't get work. I understand that. And I sympathize with that. But that was my challenge then. Those people may have their challenge now. But it was a defense mechanism from knowing who I am. And through then having to stop, I had to stop, because I remember waking up at 5 a.m. thinking, I have to stop, because I'm going to be in front of people and I'm going to collapse or cry. I don't want that to happen. I think Mick Jagger once said, you're only as good as your last gig. And so I don't know if he said that, but someone said that he said that. So if you get a good reputation, you can mess that up in one experience,
Sure.
in one. So I thought, I don't want that to happen. So I then started a journey then of, in a way, personal inner exploration, which I'd started when I was a teenager. There was a book, The Journey Inwards. It was F.C. Happold. It's a little book, but very dense. And I read that book then because I was very taken with The Journey Inwards. And I refound a copy. It's long out of print, but I refound a copy mainly because I like the title, Know Yourself, The Journey Inwards. But because the journey inwards is a journey full of pitfalls, struggles, things that shout at you, roaring animals. Imagine going through a jungle at night. It's like that. We tend to avoid it.
No, that's my motivation behind Knowing Who You Are as well. This podcast,
I think so.
through my journey, I realized that first of all, we can blame the whole world for all the miseries that befall us and all the sufferings. We say that, okay, you're responsible for that. Because of you, I am going through this. But end of the day, you have to think about what's my part in it? What have I done that now I'm going through this difficult time? So that's when I feel that it's very important to know yourself. So Martin, since you mentioned about the burnout, I think it's a proper segue to a thing like, because the modern society is so outcome driven. So being a leader, you definitely have your eye always on the outcome, and people whom you're leading, it could be sometimes quite energy depleting for them, like always push, 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 and they have to just think about the outcome. Because when you think about the outcome, you're just thinking about a positive picture you have in your mind. But in that journey, you forget about all the pain that you have to go through to reach that outcome. So every time they know they have to achieve this, but when they go through the pain, people who are being led, they kind of feel that, okay, we are not there actually. Why are we facing all this negativity in the middle? So how do you think a leader can strike a balance when they want the outcome, but at the same time, they have to keep the people whom he's leading motivated?
Well, my first thought is about that outcome. And how close is that outcome to the heart of the leader? Is this outcome something which they can believe in, embrace, hold? I know the realities of life. I've got 2 adult children. I know about mortgages and, the pressure of worry about money. I get all that. And I also understand the importance of spending our precious time on earth, our short time on earth, really putting our heart and soul and energy into something which, in a way, is aligned as much as we can with our personal values. That's why I chose charities right from when I was a teenager. I've been working in charities and that kind of thing. But I know that lots of people are not in that position. So I think that's the first thing. If you're really in a position where there is a discongruity between what you're required to get to as a leader and what your heart is telling you, then sooner or later, you're going to be in difficulty. There's going to be a crash, and that comes later in life. For me, it was when I was 60. It wasn't because of the incongruity. It was because I was not taking the time to touch my secret source, the SOURCE, under my own personal character. I was rushing too much and just getting exhausted. So I think that's the first thing. If someone is leading and they're leading somewhere that actually they don't really want to go to, they're not interested. It's a pretty difficult leadership task.
I was thinking, as you mentioned, you were there. When a leader, he has to lead them somewhere where his heart not there yet, and his visions, or probably that's not the way he would like to lead, but the outcome, because his hands are tied to. Say, for example, he's the leader of a company and there's a certain outcome and he's been asked to achieve it in a certain way. But say he's in the middle management somewhere, and then he has to lead the people under him. How do you think that he can achieve that? Because
I think it's possible because there's 2 things. One is the outcome and then the process by which you get there. And that is a personal process. It's a matter of personal engagement. If I think of the good leaders I've been part of, I think of them as people who were skilled and got us where we needed to go to. But there was something about them that I wanted to follow because they had integrity. If people have integrity, if a leader has integrity, people love that, particularly now where there is so much lack of integrity in political life and all the rest.
Yeah.
If integrity, people are longing for it. It's like thirsty in the desert. You long for sort of decency and integrity. And the leader might be someone who isn't making short-term decisions. Whatever the outcome is not saying, oh, we're going to make a decision for 1 year or less. This will get us out of trouble. We're just going to make a decision and that'll solve the problem. But it's 1 year or less. A good leader is someone who is thinking much longer term. Let's imagine 100 years or more. Making a decision for now, but having a longer term perspective, because we know that our life on the planet has been going on billions of years, and whatever happens, there's going to be some kind of life going on. So as a leader, I think it's incumbent upon them to make their decisions today, which take into account something of the future. And there is legislation in Wales, actually, I refer to this in the book. I think it's called the 7 Generations Act or something like this. Whatever they have to think about 7 generations hence. What will be the impact in the longer term? So let's hold that in mind. Even if you're a leader in a company that is trying to be a healthy, wholesome, decent company, is aware of its responsibilities to its employees, to the environment, to the future. That seems to me to be something which is an important characteristic that people will then willingly follow and give of their best. Another aspect is leaders who are more likely to say we than me. We know what egotistical leaders are like. And I'm talking here about the possibility of our together supporting, sustaining, helping, picking up when they fall down, good leaders, in order that the balance of those tens of thousands, millions, probably hundreds of millions of leaders in small situations might counteract those big leaders who are in big situations. I'm thinking particularly of political leaders. The names would easily come to mind. But the millions who are leading teams, who are leading charities, who are leading responsible corporates, B Corps or whatever, people who are leading and recognizing their responsibility for now, but their responsibility also for the future, who are recognizing that they are having a role to play. Me, have a role to play now, but I'm going to see the we, I'm going to see the bigger, I'm going to see the collective and make my decisions as best I can with that in mind. And what I find is that then people want to follow that, whether it's in an employment situation or in media or wherever. And I think there are more and more corporates who are recognizing that, because the good people, the good leaders will want to have the good corporates, the responsible corporates on their CV.
I feel, and also coming from the neuroscientific point of view, as I was telling you off camera, because there's a point, like in our brain, the brain knows only actions. So say, for example, you want to achieve certain outcome, and outcome means it's always the positive result most of the time. No one wants a negative result out of anything. So say, for example, New Year's resolution in January, people say going to the gym, getting fit, get my summer body.
We've all been there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is how to keep going every day. To be honest with you, getting up 7 o'clock in the morning and sometimes even 6:30 in the morning, I do it before going to work. I make sure that I'm at the gym. But the thing is, there are times when you don't feel like. How do you push yourself? So one way is that how you train your brain is that just do the work. This is your work, the action. What's going to happen, you don't have to know. And it's not for that body, for the fitness, this and that. So it's 7 now. And now it's time for the gym. Done. And what do? Going to the gym, you just lift the weights and do whatever, the crunches and everything that you do, come back home, done. So the same way, I think if people think about the work, okay, this is the process. You mentioned that one, the process of, how to achieve that outcome. So when the leader is telling them, this is the process, guys, we are following it. And when they follow the process, and definitely the outcome's going to come. So sometimes when there are ups and downs in terms of motivation, and you're always looking at the bigger picture, but in between you're struggling to achieve that. And there are sometimes, when you find the troughs and then you feel demotivated, I think that's one of the ways could be. But now you started mentioning, I interrupted you, saying that it's a quote that really, it rang true to me. And I would like to read that from your book. You said the spirit of a meeting can be invited to shift from being a me thing to being a we thing, which you referred to. Invite the collective. So my question is, we value leaders who are the loudest one and also the extrovert. That's why we see even in American presidential election, the tallest one most of the time, they're the presidents. And even in corporate leadership, you'll find most of the taller people and the louder and the extroverts are the leaders, and people look up to them. And people think, oh, that's an inherent leadership we see in that person. So how do you think that people who don't have that charisma, but at the same time, innately, they have the qualities they can overcome? And also, how can people avoid the mistakes of not neglecting these people who are the natural leaders or who have the qualities, and we are giving priority to the ones who are the loudest and who are always about the me, because end of the day, when it's the me thing, they're the louder one as well, because they want everyone to look at them, the attention seeker. So how to find that balance?
Yeah, I think, well, first I should say my book, I would be very surprised if political leaders whom you've referred to would read my book. I don't think so. I don't think so. Who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised, but I don't think so. So my book is really for the leaders in smaller situations, by which I mean a big corporate or a big charity, but not running entire countries which are significant on the world stage.
But why not? Why not?
Well, okay, let's send it to them, but I just don't think they'll be interested, because what their game is, okay, maybe I'm being unkind there, but their modus operandi is to they know that there are people out there who will give themselves away. Voters of those dictators, demagogues, they will give themselves away. Those voters think that person has the answer. I am in trouble. And don't have a job. They have the answer. They have the capacity, the skill, the drive, the internal drive to need those people to do that. And there are many people who would do that. So then it becomes a question about the inner world of those individuals who are followers, not leaders, but they're not followers of themselves. They're followers. They're not knowing who they are. They are attaching their beliefs and their hopes to somebody else, rather than putting themselves in a situation where they can discover what is rich in themselves, what is their own aspiration. We willingly sort of hope that those people over there are going to be able to release us from our struggle and suffering. I believe the fact is that I can release myself from my struggle and suffering. We know that suffering is endemic in the human condition. We also know that there are conditions which cause that suffering to arise. And indeed, that suffering is not just from my life. In my 6 decades of work and 7 or now in my 8th decade of living, but it also comes from my ancestors. It's something, and this is touched on in the book, but not in a big way, but the thinking about the ancestral impact on us. Well, I say that actually, one of the characters, Tara, is much influenced by her ancestral impact and heritage. She's working in
both
heritage.
Asian and Irish. Yeah.
Exactly. So I reflected that through that character, and also in 1 or 2 of the commentaries. And my own experience, which caused me to, or invited me to write about that, was my own Irish ancestry through my father. My father died years ago. His father died when he was 14 and had come from Ireland. And the relationship, the relationship between the English and Irish was pretty challenging, to put it mildly, and there was a lot of injustice. So I think my father, who became a probation officer, and I, who've spent my life working in charities, are to some extent trying to heal that historic past. So I'm not giving away that ancestral and current life struggle to somebody else, saying they will solve it. This big leader, political, will solve it.
But it's the leader's job as, at the same time, to empower those people. As you said, it's my job. So my leader would empower me if I'm lacking that vigor, that it's your job.
To empower. So I think the leaders who we maybe have in mind, the big political, are disempowering. They're saying, follow me and everything will be fine. Yeah, everything will be fine. But if you're a leader who empowers, this is very powerful. If I think of leaders in the before I started working independently, which was 25 years ago, the leaders who I respect are the ones who created a space for me to do my best. They empowered me. They did something else, which is when I screwed up, and I can think of one or two examples, which I don't need to go into now. They were there. They covered my back.
Okay.
Yeah, did this stupid thing. It was terrible, but it was just not very good. And the person then backed me up. They stood with me. And then in private, saying, what was you doing? What was that about? You know, but they were there with me. Loyalty. I was so loyal because that leader supported me at the time when I needed it. The rest of the time, he was inspiring. So to empower, to bring that power, my power that I have, my secret source coming from the secret source, which isn't secret, it's just kind of deep down, yeah? Maybe not visible to all of us all the time, to find that and to bring that through into our choices about the jobs that we do, how we get our income, how noble is that, or how honest is that, how much does that satisfy, making our choices, those life choices about where we choose to get our money from, how we choose to spend our time, and then our choices about how we conduct ourselves, both as a follower, good follower, and as a good leader.
So does it have any connection with, you said deep adaptation, and I love that idea of you have these 4 R's: resilience, relinquishment, reconciliation, and the last one is restoration, or in different orders. So if you could explain both, like deep adaptation, what do you mean by that? And also those 4 ideas.
Yes. Well, it's actually not what I'm saying. It's a guy called Jem Bendell, whom I refer to, and so on. And he's saying, in order, this change is coming. The turbulent times they're not going to stop tomorrow. So those times. So how do you adapt? You adapt deeply. You adapt deeply within yourself. So the deep is within myself. And those 4 R's are ones which he identifies as being ones which, if you do a bit of each of those, that will help adapt in your inside. You study this stuff. You know where it is. I don't know where it is, but it's in ourselves, in our being, because of the turbulence that we're in, and that turbulence has been mounting actually all my lifetime. I was born in 1950. The population in 1950 was, I think I've got it right, 2 point something. Was it 2.5, 2.4? And it's now over 8 billion. 2.5 in my little lifetime. And underneath that, a zillion other things. And that complexity is, of course, getting worse. So we each do what we're called to do. What I was called to do was to write this book. Feels like God spoke to me. No, God didn't speak to me. I just had an impulse and I followed it, and I kept on damn going, even when I was miserable, depressed, gloomy, thought I have no idea what I'm doing. My wife said, this is good, you've got to carry on. So I did. And 1 or 2 other people said, no, of course you've got to do it. So because it was something that felt right for me to do. So that deep adaptation is the adaptation that all of us, beyond leaders, everybody, all of us need in order to be able to respond well to the suffering that is washing into our lives, washing across our desks, the wild waters that are washing across our desks, and how we can navigate that. It's a personal journey. That's why, Ershad, when we first met and you told me about this podcast, I thought, hey, this is my thing. This is wonderful. I remember we met and so quickly.
I'm glad.
Connected like that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where it is. And in order to do that work, which is quite long time, work that takes a long time, it's intensely personal, and you don't need to do it alone. It's intensely personal, and we don't need to do it alone. We do it with others, because Jem Bendell, who you've referred to, also talks. He's got a new book out, and it's free bits on the internet, and it's called Breaking Together. Things are breaking apart. collapse. So let's break together, which means that part of our survival and our recovery as leaders, as followers, as citizens of the world is to break together, to hold together. So for example, I'm part of a number of groups, several of which I think all of which I've either initiated or co-initiated. Groups of people where we share and we talk and we hold each other and we go through the stuff that we're going through.
That's why I highlighted certain points in the book, like this one. It gives me the idea because we're talking about a situation where a leader has to do something which doesn't align with his own vision. So that comes, then the question comes whether he should pivot, because you had said, it was one of your commentary there, don't put up with being tolerated, work somewhere where you are celebrated.
Yes.
So that's the importance of pivoting. I was thinking, when you feel that, okay, this is not the place for me, what to do and how to do, because you have other commitments and the reality is there too of life.
I'm so glad that you pick these things up, Ershad, and I'm impressed you've read it and you're picking them up. That came, thank you for your sort of dedication to that. That was in a job that I left the Red Cross. My post was made redundant. That was a lot of suffering because I thought somehow this was my job for life. Structural change, redundant, off you go, pretty much. And then I went to another job and I was there 2 years and it was extremely difficult. And it was, and then I left. I got a settlement. I wanted to go, and to my surprise, when I said, "Look, I want to break my contract," they said, "Oh, okay," and there was a financial offer as well. And then someone said to me, then, as I was in the process of leaving, because people could see what was happening, you know, they kind of were on my side, but see the atmosphere in that organization was not particularly helpful, or it was quite toxic actually. And that person said, be somewhere where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So when you said, where's the authority for this book? Well, there's a little example from 25 or more years ago, a little experience. I thought, that's really helped me. Maybe that will help one other person. Maybe that's something that I could put in there. Be celebrated, not tolerated. And there are, whoever you are, and whatever kind of leader you are or aspire to be, there will be places where you will be celebrated. And, you know, I went from being tolerated in that situation by the senior colleague. And then I went to places. That's when I started my working independently in 1999. Like a few months later, people were celebrating me. Said, oh, wow, you can do this and you can do that. I took a decision.
That's the quality of a good leader as well. When the celebration comes and when you find that people are liking you, but that's when I feel the leaders have a very difficult role, in a sense that, because as a leader, most of the time you're revered and everyone think that you have answers to all the problems, even they're going through. But leaders are humans and there are things that they don't know about, they can struggle too. But the problem is when they express this, definitely this is a good practice in a sense, because then people learn from the leader that how, when they're vulnerable, they don't have an answer to a question. They can openly say that I don't know about this, because when the leader can do that. But how can a leader do it without coming across as weak and also avoiding the fake confidence that every time I know everything, you know?
2 C words. I think a leader can be in charge without being in control. You know, there's a situation, and I know there is an answer there, whatever we need to do in some project. I can still be in charge, but I don't need to be in control. So that's it's a real quality as a leader to say, I can let go some of this. I'm still paid to be the leader in this situation. So I'm still in charge. And I believe there's going to be some answers. And I also was in a prison I wasn't imprisoned. I visited a prison. Dark part of my history.
Getting out of the way.
No. I visited and I saw that prison governor doing exactly that in his room. And what he did is and I was visiting, and there was a difficult issue, and he was speaking with people, and he heard from everyone sitting around a table. And then he said, okay. And he moved to his desk, his big desk. He said, now I'm making the decision.
Mm.
So it's a beautiful dance going from I'm one of all of us trying to find a solution to saying I'm a leader who takes charge. Sitting behind my desk, I've listened to everybody. This is what we're going to do. And I take the consequences because I'm the leader.
That's
and I
nice.
was pretty, but that's in a prison, which is pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Leadership environment. Good leader. People followed him. People followed him.
No, I was getting at also another part of this question was when you don't have the answer as a leader, and how do you express it that I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to it, but I will find it working with the rest of you. And how do you do that?
Yeah,
I mean, I think I answered it to a certain extent, but
yeah, of course, there's 101 situations, but I wouldn't start out by apologizing. I think I would start saying, we've got this situation, and I think the answer's here somewhere, and we're going to find it. We're going to find it together. And my job is to create the space as a leader to create the space to find that. But we're going to find that. But we can find that together. It's not, oh, sorry, I don't know. It's, oh, I don't know everything. I could find something out, and to reflect. One of the bits in the book you may have come across is, are you going to do R&R or R&R? Are you going to react and retaliate? Or are you going to reflect and respond?
wow.
So I think you've touched on. The second one is let's reflect together, and then we will respond. Or if I'm the leader in that situation, I will respond, i.e. decide what we're going to do. If we're thinking of the kind of dictators and those kind of leaders, react, retaliate. You've done a thing to me, I'm going to hit you. Whether that's in the street or whether that's in the conflict zones that we see around the world.
One way of suppression.
Retaliate.
Yeah.
That's an immediately satisfying, but it's not long-term satisfying. And I don't begin to say that I've got the answers to any of those solutions, to those profound struggles, but reacting and retaliating takes us down. If we reflect as a group, or we reflect individually as ourselves sitting at home or going for a walk or whatever, or we're talking with a friend or a paid advisor, we reflect, what is the truth? Somewhere in me, I know the answer to this thing. And then to respond. I believe that's always the case. And looking not just for now, but into the longer term, thinking we rather than me. And in the book, if I can say one other thing, which I think is pertinent to this, that I had a challenge writing the book. Well, lots of challenges, but the underlying challenge, that if I'm in a facilitation assignment and there's a group and it's over a few days. In fact, tomorrow I'll be working with a group for the day. And it's kind of easy in the sense that it's one group at one moment in time. So then I can respond and suggest what might be a helpful process to get to where that group, it's in a charity, thinking about their strategic, their future, their longer term future in quite a challenging situation. I can do that. If I'm sitting with an individual, someone I'm coaching, one moment, I can do that. How do I do that for any number of people? I don't know how many people would buy this book. Most of them I won't know. Those people, and in situations which I don't know, if you like, at different points in their river, if you like, in the wild waters, what point are they in? How can I say anything? Because I don't know. And I'm going to invite people to go on a fishing trip. It's a sort of a metaphor that sort of fits with the wild waters, that there is something in this book, maybe two things, maybe three things, which will suit you as an individual right now. The job of the reader is to read and find the 1, 2, 3 things that might be apposite, might be fitting for them right now. And then to think, I'm going to do something with that, not just find something. And it may be one action. It may be one thing. Do one thing. One thing, then a second thing will turn up. So that's, in a way, that's standing back from the whole book about how I'm inviting people.
It's living up to your commitments. That's very important. Like when you're committing, even things you're saying you will do, you keep on failing. Say, for example, I'll look after my health. Everyone knows, okay, this time I'm going to the gym. Because how many times in this day and age of social media, I don't want to slag anyone off. But the thing is, you see the first day at the gym, you have posted your selfie. Probably That's it. After that, you never had been to the gym. And I'm like, please work on it. Show us the change. I feel like because you owe it to yourself. And every time when you keep falling back on your commitments, I think you create a pattern for yourself as well, and also for people to see.
Yes. I mean, maybe this is taking us a long way from leadership. I don't know, but I had an experience. I've been in a gym for a long time. I stopped 2 or 3 years ago, but my neighbor said, "Oh, I know a gym. It's really, it's quite cheap. It's really good. It's really cool and funky and everything." And I went there, and I was a member for 2 months, and I just didn't like it. I just found it. There was something about the atmosphere. There was light. It was noisy. I thought, I'm just having to make myself do this. I want to take exercise. It gets more important as you get older, much more important. So I walk. And I think that's just much more satisfying.
So there is another thing that you were talking about leader, because say, for example, in a board, you might have members. Not everyone likes you as a leader because they find you probably a little bit softer or too harsh, different ways and your leadership skills, and they have questions about it. Or probably they would like to put themselves up as the leader at some point. So they have vested interest in it too. But at the same time, they're serving very well. They're very efficient and they're doing a great job. And as a leader, you find yourself in a difficult position because every time you find yourself in a room with those people, you find the air is getting dense. It's very suffocating, but you need those people. I mean, how have you found yourself in situations like that, and how did you deal with it?
Of course, like that, both as an advisor, a coach or a facilitator, but also in my own work situation. And I think the thing is, when it gets toxic and tense like that, it's good to take it out of the room. If you've got, I don't know, 10 people and everybody's thinking, oh God, that board meeting next week, and it's last time, do you remember what happened? Because so-and-so is so rude or so something. I would take it out of the room. I would preferably before. Easy to say if it's a week or two before, but if it's this afternoon, that's a bit harder. Because I think one of the principles here is to calm, In that situation, it's too hot to handle. Things would happen too quickly. In a meeting, things move very fast. It's a bit like a wave, a wave in the ocean. It will build up for miles and miles, maybe hundreds of miles. What happens when it comes into shore? It builds up because it gets contact with the ground and it builds up. So that's the meeting. That's it. The build up is all the planning and the preparation. And then the build up is the meeting rather is when the wave breaks. Things happen very quickly and you can get knocked around a bit. Importantly, then there's a follow through when the wave goes up the beach. It's probably going a bit off your question, but there's maybe another metaphor from facilitation and how to prepare for that challenging time when the wave is building up and breaking. So that's not the time to be having the really difficult conversation with the person. Well, I should say it might be, but you would have prepared that beforehand. In the calmer times, when the energy is still out in the ocean, and that you're speaking with the one person or the two people, or getting these two, if you can, get these two people together. There's something about calming. Indeed, maybe even stopping. One of the things you may have noticed, I think it's at the end of chapter 1, snappy. Stop. This is stop. So just when it's a chaotic time, just stop, reflect, and then notice.
Great answer. I think it's not always, it's hard to give a foolproof answer to situations like that. But what you have given, these are the tools that you can be mindful of.
Yeah, and it's a generic answer. But I bet you if someone listening to that is in that position, if they would dip into the book, find the book, they will find something in there where they go, oh yeah, maybe I could do that.
So Martin, talking about people in the group, they don't like each other or they don't like the leader, or there could be situations where as a leader, you find certain member of the group that they're not quite up to the task and probably efficiency or something they're lacking, but even though they're a good human being and they have other qualities too. So when do you think is the right time, or how to judge when to let them go or either to help them grow? How would you do that?
I think I would say you don't run from these things, but you find the courage as a leader to respond to them, but always with precise, examples of this happened this morning, this happened at the meeting or the situation 2 days ago. So the evidence is clear, and to be clear about what is the facts and then what is interpretation, and to be clear about what you know. But what I would say is that the first thought is, how do I help them grow? And the second thought is, how do I help them grow? And the third thought is, how do I help them grow? And then if it ain't working, you then let them go.
But also, I think there are times when we can also probably replace the judgment with curiosity sometimes, because how many times have we see, even in real life, that we label people around us? Like someone, oh, that's the lazy one, that's the moaner, and that's this. Oh, this person, you hear that someone, there's a phone ringing, the name pops up on your phone, and sometimes your brain straight away says, oh, it's him or it's her or it's them. Straight away, you have a judgment about that person. So I think when you build that culture as well, without trying to, a judgmental culture of judgment rather than curiosity, what's happening? Why do they do that? And why is he or she is behaving in a certain way? I think that might help too. What do you think?
Yes, I think that this C is really important. The C for curiosity is really important. It reminds me of what someone who has been very supportive in producing the book, and who also coaches people and so on. And she said, you never know who you're standing next to. I said, well, what do you mean? She was talking about conferences that she'd been to where she knew a number of the people because she'd coached them and helped them at particular points, but they weren't saying anything. Kind of put that. And what she was saying is that in all of those people, there's a whole ocean of stuff going on behind, and there is the front there. And of course, that to some extent is the same, is the case. We all put on some kind of front. But if you have the curiosity combined perhaps with another couple of C's of compassion, the curiosity about what's going on for this person, and for them to know that you have compassion and that you have the courage to be curious, knowing that you also have the responsibility as a leader that they do the job, that they do it well enough. But your working assumption is that they want to do it well and that they want to grow and they want to develop and expand. So you have the courage and the compassion. And I think those two things, in a way, or the three things with the curiosity that you've introduced, probably sort of adds up to wisdom. Yeah.
It's about having a different perspective, I think, because as you see, I can see something that's in your book as well, no mud, no lotus. So the thing is, if you see only the mud, you will miss the lotus, the beauty of it. So I have learned in my life too, I'll quote something from your book as well, because I loved it. It says, each time you think of something you're grateful for, write it on a slip of paper and put in a jar by the door. And this is my favorite part. Think gratitude every time you brush your teeth. So
yeah, exactly. So do it every day, because those things are there. And some of them may seem small or insignificant. But if you can see in the mirror, then be grateful, because there are some people who can't see in the mirror. I'm of an age where a lot of people around me having cataract operations, their eyesight's going. Be glad that you can see in the mirror. You can walk, I guess, Ershad, you can run. Be happy. One day you won't be able to do that.
The whole thing changed in me. There had been times, definitely you've been through it too. Like I would complain about situations and I'm not happy about, and I would think about certain difficulties in life. But to be honest with you, I do it, I practice it more and more. The gratitudes, I look all around me. I think, okay, if I die now.
We haven't finished.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I
no,
shouldn't.
no.
Yeah, I have to edit it and also post it and after that. But at the risk of sounding morbid, I'd say that even if my time is over, we don't know. I would probably think that I have seen it all. I have done as many things. I have had a lot of opportunities in my life. And I've met people like you. I'm talking to someone I met. It was a chance conversation we had. And here we are talking. So I'm grateful for everything. Every now and then I tell myself, like, I have this beautiful relationship in my life, my wife, and how we connect, how the help I get. Same, you mentioned about your wife and the things, how she helped you. So these are the things we're grateful in our life, and the gratitude helps a lot, I think, end of the day. So Martin, the question comes to you. we have come to the end of it. What are you grateful for in your life?
Oh boy. Well, I'll tell you what first comes to my mind, which is that my parents and my childhood. That's probably a bit obvious and cheesy, but I share what first comes to mind. And I think of the garden that we had and the vegetables they grew, and my mother did the flowers, and there was a view from that house. It was in Hastings, and it was down probably a mile, 2 miles down to the sea. That's all now built up. But I've been back there, and I found a picture. My brother and I found a little picture of that view. And also now I see other views, and I think of the end of my life. And somehow that initial image of that view is the beginning of my life, which I'm grateful for, and the start it gave me. And now I think of the end of my life, which is not now, not today, being with a bit of luck, maybe 10 years, 20 years, who knows? But that's the end of my life. And that, what I'm grateful for is having that perspective of that span. And the book here, as we finish, in a way, it's a really important moment for me, because it, as best I can, it's brought together a lot of stuff that I've learned and that I've put together in one book, and I send it out into the wild.
If you could show the book as well, probably, because
Yeah.
I have been reading, Good Leaders in Turbulent Times.
How
Amazing
to
book.
navigate wild waters at work. And the at work is in the workplace, but also that are at work underneath us. And maybe out in the wild, we will have big adventures. Maybe it falls down a hole and no one ever mentions it again. I don't know, but I've given it the best start I can. I give it the best start in life, like my parents gave me the best start in life. And
important of all, maybe one of the presidents would end up reading it. As you said, that probably they won't.
who knows? Can I come back on your podcast if that happens?
Oh, yeah,
that
sure,
would be
definitely. Yeah.
That would be something. Yeah. So it's available from all over the place. And as you said, I think it's a bestseller, became a bestseller on Monday. Kindle bestseller, I have to say. I don't want to over exaggerate, but in 3 categories in the UK and 2 in the US. That was amazing. Yeah.
And Martin, is there anywhere else they can follow you, like a social media platform or anything that you...
Yeah, well, on LinkedIn, I would be, because I'm now becoming quite active on LinkedIn. I haven't yet got into Instagram, I have to say. And I think LinkedIn is where I'm focusing.
No, I'll add the descriptions anyway. In the description, your details will be there. So people would like to get in touch, because you coach as well. So
Yes.
if they're interested to learn more about leadership and different aspects from your experience,
Whatever. It's a journey that's opening up for me, and we'll see what happens. And also my website, which is martinfarrell.org. Martin
Okay,
Farrell.
great.
Also get there from my company name, which is Get to the Point, GET number 2, the point. Get to the point. So if you go to gettothepoint.org, there's a holding page with some nice cartoons, drawings from this book and so on. And then it takes you to the Martin Farrell. And at the bottom of that, there are pictures of this book out in the wild. This has taken me into a shift into a new position of supporting good leaders, because I see those good leaders in their teams and charities and responsible organizations can shift of what we're experiencing all around us. So I want to support them. I want to encourage them, and I want it to be humorous, And there was funny bits, and at the launch, I'm giving people books, and I'm wrapping them all up, different colors,
Looking
tissue.
forward to it.
Yeah, so I haven't got to yours yet, Ershad, but you're on the.
Okay, let's see what color I get.
Let's have color. We need to enrich our experience in these.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Thanks for your time today. I love the conversation. I hope you did as much as I did.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we'll get to talk once you have step 1 read by one of the presidents, and I'll have part 2 with you.
That would be something.
And in the meantime, have a great time. And everyone, hope to see you again, another interview, and with someone as special as Martin has been. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.